to Transformation in Trials. Welcome to Transformation in Trials. This is a podcast exploring all things transformational in clinical trials. Nothing is off limits on the show, and we will have guests from the whole spectrum of the clinical trials community. And we're your hosts, Ivana and Sam. All right, welcome to another episode of Transformation in Trials. Today we have Johan Lauritsen with us, who is the CEO and founder of Probe. Hi, Johan.
Hi.
So today's topic is clinical trials as an alternative to treatment. And Johan has some really interesting experience with this topic. So Johan, just setting the stage for us, can you tell us more about your experience of trying to get yourself enrolled in a clinical trial?
Yes, I would love to. And thanks for having me. So I myself, I'm a medical student at the University of Copenhagen, but also I am a full-time chronic patient. I suffer from a subtype of muscular dystrophy called spinal muscular atrophy type 2. And that means we can talk about this later maybe, but I have a chronic disease, and what's very common for people with especially rare chronic diseases like mine is that there's a high willingness to participate in clinical trials, and this wasn't very different for me. So back then, when I knew absolutely nothing about clinical trials, I was like, I know that they always say that there's a lot of stuff going on within the research field, and there's a lot of upcoming therapies, but I was like, but it didn't seem to be available to me. So was there a way for me that I could say, hey, I know that this isn't 100% safe and approved yet, but I would still like to try out a new medicine and actually help maybe speed up the research. And then I went, like everyone else, I went to Google and I just typed clinical trial spinal muscular atrophy, right? And the first thing that popped up was this webpage called clinicaltrials.gov. And this is like the largest database of clinical trials. And already here, I was like, almost on my way to close down the browser again, because all of the windows was like, there were some trials that were recruiting, some trials were recruiting by invitation, someone was unknown, and someone was, some kind of fourth status of recruitment status. And I mean, I was so confused. And then I typed spinal muscular atrophy, and then I had to, make some filters. I applied, at that time I was 20 years old, and I said, and I have this weight and I have this gender. And then all of a sudden it filtered it down to like, I think it was 9 or 8 available trials in clinicaltrials.gov. I was like, this is a start. They're recruiting and they fit my initial criteria. So then I found this fancy gene therapy. It's called Spinraza, also nusinersen. And I went into it because I've heard about it before. And I know that there was a lot of potential in this drug. And then I encountered the next phase of problems, right? I saw that, there was these inclusion and exclusion criteria for the trials. And what I realized was that I had no idea how to be sure that I met these trial criteria or not. So it was asking, I needed to have some kind of motor function measurement score within a certain interval. And I need to have a genetically verified model and this many backup genes of SMN2. And all of these things is like, I was like, I'm just a patient. How am I supposed to know this? And there was no apply button or anything. I just had an email and a phone number to the researcher on the trial site, the investigation site that was closest to me, which happened to be in Germany. And, I was back and forth. I was going towards my health records. I spammed my doctor and I called him, every day to understand whether I met the trial criteria or not. And after days of researching whether I fit the trial, then I realized that I actually was a good match for the trial. And then I called them and said, hey guys, where do I sign? I'm at your trial. I did the research, right? And they was like, oh yeah, that's very nice. And we're so happy that you're contacting us, but you have to make your physician write on your behalf because they kind of need that validation. And now comes all of the funny problems, right? Because then I had to adapt the healthcare system in Denmark to the healthcare system in Germany. And these are different. And I also had the same issue recently with a trial in the US. And my doctor in Denmark weren't willing to communicate with them because they were outside of the Danish secure-ish mail client server. So
an IT issue, really?
Yeah, an IT issue. Who could have guessed? And then after, first I contacted my own private practicing physician. He was like, oh, no, you have to go to the specialist department. I'm not a neurologist. And then, I waited 2 days to get an appointment by him. And then he sent me to the neurology department at the hospital in the main capital, Rigshospitalet in Copenhagen. And there I had to wait 3 months to get an appointment to a neurologist that could potentially forward me to the trial. And when that 3 months were due, the recruitment period for the trial was also due. So I did a lot of stuff and a lot of work for no. And the funny thing was that even though the appointment didn't even make sense anymore because they weren't recruiting for the trial by that time, I showed up and I said, hi, what would the process look like if I had to get forwarded to a trial? And the funny thing was that my neurologist with a long education of being a neurologist, right? She was just like, I don't know. I actually don't know. And I was like, what is this? I mean, how can this be, right? And that's where, having talked for a lot of time now about all of these problems, I just simply, in mere frustration, made my own company to try and solve all of these issues.
Did you get enrolled in the trial in the end, Johan?
Never.
No happy ending here?
No happy ending. It was ruthless.
But instead, you set out to transform how patients could access clinical trials so that other people don't have to go through the same hassle as you did. Exactly.
At least I aim to do that.
And more broadly, Johan, and that was a fascinating backstory, by the way, but more broadly, is recruitment for clinical trials a real problem for the industry? Are a lot of trials under-enrolled?
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand the landscape of a clinical trial participation here, because a lot of the large disease group, chronic disease groups like diabetes, for example, there is massive problems in terms of recruiting patients, right? Because I have there's a physician working with me in my company, and she was told to this is the other side of the issue from not from the patient perspective, but from the researcher recruiting the participant. And she said that she was told to recruit 3,000 type 1 diabetes patients within 3 months. And the regulations actually restricts the researcher so much that the only way that she can recruit participants is either by having, an ad in the newspaper, like the physical newspaper, or just, calling patients that are already associated with the clinic that she is working on. So that's a manual process, just making thousands of phone calls every day, full-time job. And the physician has to do that. What in the world is wrong with this? And actually, when the 3 months were due, she ended up only recruiting, I think it was 300 type 1 diabetes patients.
Wow.
And she had to go back to the ones conducting the trial and sponsoring it, saying that this is not possible. And then they ended up saying, okay, we only need 1,000 participants instead because this is unrealistic. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So you've got real problems both ends of the spectrum then, both from the participant standpoint, someone like yourself who's proactively trying to go out and find clinical trials that are a good fit for you. and then from the investigator standpoint, trying to actually go out and find potential participants to enroll in trials. It's a perfect storm, if you like.
Yeah, and I'd also maybe just quickly add that there's a lot of diseases that has the similar problem to diabetes. There's a lot of cancer types that also has a lot of patients that needs trials, but they can't find the right participants, even though the participants are very willing to actually participate in the trial. And there's there's a side note that I would like to make, that, for example, for my case, in rare chronic diseases like spinal muscular atrophy, usually the one thing is that they don't need that many patients because there aren't that many patients available. Obviously, I think usually they have something like 20 or 30 trial participants. But you have two problems there. One is that maybe you have a population of 150 patients, which are actually should be able to reach if you had the right infrastructure, which is the product that we're trying to create. More participants would obviously mean a better quality of data, which means a higher probability of, getting the drugs or the therapy to the patients when they make the application for the drug approval. And the second thing is that there's no democratic access for patients to get into these trials. There's a lot of patients actually phoning their doctors saying, "Hi, you're my doctor. I saw that you're conducting this trial. Can I please participate?" And they've never participated in a trial before, even though they would fit the trial 100% perfectly. But what happens is that the doctors have already have participants that they know is educated, you can say, to participate in trials. So they don't, enroll the participants that hasn't been into trials before, because that would take longer time for them. And that obviously isn't very democratic.
So there's something about the access to trials and the right to participate in a trial. That sounds almost like a moral consideration that you're having, that this is something that we should have, that patients should be able to access trials. Can you say more about that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that as a patient, maybe I'm a bit of a unicorn there because I also have a medical background, but I, as a patient, should have the right to participate in any trial in the world if I fit the criteria, and they need trial participants. Then why should I be stopped from participating in the trial, even though it's potentially in another country, even though my physician doesn't want to forward me to the other investigator because of mail security issues, right? I mean, I don't think that any physician or healthcare personnel should have the right to take this opportunity from patients.
That's an awesome way to phrase it. We also talked a little bit about, because clinical trials are can be very beneficial to a patient, but there are also risks involved with participating in experimental therapy. When you were attempting to join a clinical trial, did you consider the risk of not getting the treatment if you were in a placebo arm, or perhaps adverse events that could be associated with the treatment?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. Back then, I didn't think about it. Back then, I hadn't even thought about the possibility of me getting a spinal an injection in my spinal cord of salt water instead of some fancy gene therapy. And then I thought, well, I would probably be disappointed if my main goal was to try out a new therapy that could potentially help me. But I was then, I meditated a bit on that. And then I was like, well, actually, I would still be happy with it because I know that this brings the therapy closer to the patients. And I know that even though I don't get the drug or the therapy that I'm hoping for, I am still, speeding up the research. And in a bit longer term, I'm actually still improving, increasing the speed that it takes to approve the drug. But obviously, there's one simple fix around this. And all of the trials, and this is, I would say this for patients wanting to participate in trials, that all the trials will, like every trial, will write whether they have a placebo group or not. It will stand very clearly that it is a placebo-controlled trial. And I mean, when I say clearly, I say it's available in the participant description in clinicaltrials.gov. We hope the product that we're developing hopes to make this much more clear. But it stands there, and if it says that and it's a red flag for the participant, then you can just simply, not apply.
And Johan, you painted a very bleak picture about the current state for participants who want to enroll in a clinical trial. We appreciate the description that you gave there. Could you perhaps elaborate on what the ideal state might look like as somebody who's a participant in a trial and would be keen to enroll in future trials? What would good look like from a participant standpoint as it pertains to enrolling in a clinical trial?
Yeah, so to make the application process, the process of which that I as a patient gets enrolled in a trial, I think there's an important distinction to make here, and that is that there is one thing is getting enrolled in a trial, and another thing is applying for a trial, right? And why do I have to make this distinction? It's very important distinction because enrolling in a trial means that the investigator has approved you, and you are now an official participant of the trial. And it takes much more effort to get to that stage than to actually just send an email, even though that this email is also very, very, very frustrating to send. And some of the companies right now are trying to help researchers, not patients, but some of the companies right now are trying to help researchers recruit participants. They don't say, hi, you pay us this many money, and then we're going to get a patient enrolled into your trial. No. They're like, we don't offer that guarantee. You pay us this certain amount of money, and then we can get you an email from a participant that fits. And 30% of all participants drop out. So that's a bit of a problem. But that was just an important thing for me to mention. To get back to your question, it would be first thing is that I would love to, have a pre-filtered trial selection. All of my health data is already available in all sorts of service in the healthcare system. So it would be nice if I could just simply see the trials that I actually met the criteria for, right? I'm eligible for these trials. Now, the second part comes into that I want to understand what I'm saying yes to, right? I do not want to just participate in any trial because I might, get some nasty biopsy that hurts a lot, right? And then I want to know, so what are the hurdles? What sample tests do I have to go through? Is it just, blood tests, blood samples? Or do I have to, maybe have some kind of biopsy to taking out a bit of my muscle, because that would be much more painful for me. So how much, it should be very, very clear, how much does this trial participation require from me, and how much energy would it take from me? And yeah, that would be like seeing a simple overview like of the sample test, and how long is the trial enrolling for, and how many times do I have to visit the hospital? That's just really important, and that's not very clear right now. It's just a bunch of, if you ask me, just a bunch of researches information that isn't very relevant for the participants, and that's just also exhausting. And then the most important thing here is that there should just be a simple apply button. Like, where is the apply button? I just need that damn apply button. But no, I have to call the headquarters and ask the reception to get me to the right principal investigator. And then I get to his, voicemail. And then the voicemail says, leave me an email. And then I was like, oh my God, right. I mean, there just needs to be a simple apply button. And just, at least if I don't get into the trial, if I don't get enrolled in the trial, at least just tell me that I haven't been enrolled to the trial, and just don't leave me hanging there. Right. That's some of the things that would improve the process greatly.
And why do you think we're in the situation that we're in terms of like clinicaltrials.gov being the go-to, if you like, to try and find information about trials. What's stopped advancement in that space?
Yeah, so I recently saw on clinicaltrials.gov that they've been making this modernization effort, and now you can access a beta version of their website. And if you ask me, it's just very, very slight improvement in their UI UX, but there's no, core functionalities. There's no apply button. There's nothing of the things that I just mentioned. And I think one of the main reasons that clinicaltrials.gov is the first thing popping up in Google is probably some search engine optimization, because they have a lot of money. It is the British, I think it's the British government that started making this website, because it's the NIH that made it. And
we don't do user-friendly stuff in Britain, that's for sure.
No, Denmark's not really good at that as well. Better than much else, but I'd say that that's one thing. It's the SEO, because they have a lot of money to make the search engine optimization. But the other thing is that you have to give them, they have all available trials in the whole damn world, right? There's not a single trial in this world that isn't registered into clinicaltrials.gov. And that's where they have their force, because there's some databases like with Power, I think they'll call, and there are someone called Find Me Cure or something like that. And they just basically make a hook, an API, where they import all of the clinical trials from clinicaltrials.gov, and just try to make a more user-friendly, type of clinicaltrials.gov. So I think that's the reason that they're this much up, and researchers use it all the time. But the problem is that it is not patients that has designed this website. It's researchers. They haven't asked patients, what do you think of this? What do you need? They're just like, they don't want to spend resources on that. And that's problematic. And it's researchers hasn't been educated in how to make user-friendly participant descriptions for their clinical trials. They've been, educated in providing very detailed and nuanced and describing information and providing the right amount of information, but they haven't been taught how to provide it in a user-friendly way. And that's basically, almost as important as that the fact that there's the right amount of information.
And Johan, what do you think we would need to do to get clinical investigators or physicians more interested in enrolling people in clinical trials and understanding that this can be a viable treatment option besides the already approved medicine?
Yeah, I think, there's a group of physicians. This is not to call anyone out, right? I'm a soon-to-be physician, so I'm not calling people out by title. But I'd say that there's a group of physicians that are perfectly aware of how trial conduction works. And there's another group of physicians that has no clue about how conducting trials work. And that is either because they've decided from the very start that I don't want to do clinical research. I just want to have ambulatory patients. And that's completely okay. I do think that we need to push these physicians and tell them how important it actually is to make clinical research and to conduct trials. And I think that we should do, as a society and as government and sponsors and medical companies, should make it more lucrative and more exciting for the researchers to actually conduct trials. Because right now it's a burden for them. I mean, the ones saying, I want to conduct a clinical trial, they have to do this, on the side of actually, while having ambulatory patients. And they have to do the manual recruiting process, and it's just a burden. So we have to relieve that burden to engage more physicians in actually conducting trials. And then there's the other group, the researchers knowing how to conduct trials and already are doing it. I think it's very important, one, that they understand the importance of the democracy that is. Let's say that we had a tool that could reach the whole patient population within a click of a mouse button. right? Then it's important for them to know that clinical trial participation, especially for people with chronic diseases, means a whole lot. And they should say, well, this person hasn't been into a trial before, so therefore I should offer him or her a trial, right? And instead of being like, unfortunately, I hear a lot of cases where oncologists or people working with cancer patients, they're just like, well, sorry, you have 2 to 5 years left to live. Bye-bye, right? Have a good day. And this is crazy, because what would happen? I don't think there would be anything unethical in just simply saying, and just, providing that bit spark of hope, saying, but there's a lot of research going on within cancer, and there's a lot of research going on within this field, and I will keep you posted in terms of clinical trials. Because, I think it's unethical not to do that, because you're just taking away a possibility of hope and, lowering the quality of life for the patients by not doing this. And it's simply, it breaks my heart that some physicians actively, choose not to tell them this. It's the patient that has to have this realization. I really hate it. Yeah.
I can totally hear that in your description, Johan. And it sounds like you're obviously somebody who's experienced the problem firsthand, right? You're also empathetic about the problem as it relates to other patient groups. You don't strike me as the type of individual who's just going to sit on his laurels and do nothing about it. So I'm curious to hear, apart from coming on podcasts and talking about the problem, how are you out there solving this?
Yeah. So a bit over 6 months ago, I officially launched my company Probe. And what we aim to do is to make a platform that suggests relevant clinically relevant trials for the patients based on their health data. And when they get these trial suggestions, they can simply, see a 3-minute video of the researchers talking about the trial, and, be much more engaging to understand the trial. There was a study, actually, I think it was a month ago, that was published that showed that the participants had, a significantly higher understanding of the trial when it was presented to them in a video instead of a long and boring text. And I hypothesized that this will also decrease the amount of participants that drop out of trials, because it increases the understanding of the trial participation. So that's one thing, right? The other thing is that when we're sure that they actually have the information that they need, they can just simply hit an apply button, and then they will get, if they've said yes, they can get push notifications, they can get an email, they can get a call, anything like that, within a week or so, and know whether they've been, enrolled in the trial or not. So that's the whole idea. And that's what I'm working on full time right now.
Awesome, man. And what are you running into in terms of challenges? Because I would imagine if it was that simple, someone might have solved this already, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, at first, it was like when I pitched people this idea, they were like, trying to scare me away with GDPR and saying, no, you're using health data to this. You can't do this. This is impossible. And then I looked around in the landscape and I'm like, what are you talking about? There's health data everywhere. Ask someone from Google. They know everything about you, right? And that's I know that some of the main hospitals here in Denmark, again, I'm not going to call partners that I have out, but some of these hospitals have used Amazon Web Services to host their health data from the patients on. And I have a very close friend of mine. His name is Mark, and he told me that he got a post on this e-box. This is the mailbox that the government sends to Danish citizens when they have new things. And he got a mail from them saying, "Oops, we had a data leakage. and someone knows your data now, we're sorry about that. It won't happen again. Bye-bye. That was everything that they had to do to be compliant, right? How messed up is that? So, I mean, if someone calls me out, I'm going to call them out, right? Unless I actually made a major decision, a major flaw in my decision taking. But what I did to, address this compliance regulatory issue was that we partnered up with someone from Denmark called Computer Rome, which is this new high pressure, very encrypted ISEA 27001 certified cloud solution. That means that all health data that is, moved in the cloud is logged. So we can see everything that happens, and it's extremely secure. So we said, well, we're going to take the security to a new level to actually show that we can document that we are only using the health data for the purpose that we're actually saying that we are. And this is actually a step further than many, many hospitals healthcare solutions has already done.
Awesome. And what are the practicalities around creating the videos for that the researchers create for a given trial? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. In Denmark, there's like a ethics committee that whenever a researcher makes this protocol, which includes, a lot of technical details about the trial, but also the participant information, they have to kind of approve the trial. And when it's approved, then they can publish the trial and the participant information. So I asked them, hey, guys, there's a lot of problems in this, and I think it would be much better if we did video. And then there was like, oh, we've never heard about that before. We have to think about that. And then they got back to me some months after, and they said, well, we don't know yet, but it could potentially be possible if you maybe made a video, it's some kind of, script for us that the researchers say. So we're trying to develop an intelligent solution for that. So like a speech to text solution, so that when they talk in the video, it gets written down in a paper, and we just send it to the regulatory council. But there is a way of actually bypassing this, and I know that the regulatory council committee guys are not very happy about it. But we can actually say, okay, there's this PDF, this document that has been officially approved and certified, and when the trial participant found a trial and they have hit the apply button via our app, then they will get shown this approved PDF, and they'll scroll down and they can just simply say, I hereby say yes and confirm that I've read this trial description and that I understand it, and sign it legally and just press approve. And then it's not my problem if they haven't read the boring document, right? This is no different than what all other companies are doing with their terms of conditions.
Amazing. And what about the whole application process? That dream of yours, one button, apply. Underpinning that, is there a lot of complexity to actually make that happen?
Well, in the beginning here, our go-to-market strategy is that when they hit the apply button, we will make a very great, we will generate a very great application for the trial to the email that's provided by the API from clinicaltrials.gov. And then, the researcher will see, hey, there is 53 trial applicants that fits your trial. Click here to unlock the participants, right? And that's our go-to-market strategy. But the next strategy is actually to make the researchers manually upload the trial into our platform and have this intimate connection to ensure that the researchers are also, talking to the potential participants and maybe make a communication solution within the app, a text solution where the participant can ask the researchers questions and vice versa.
Awesome. And so the company's called Probe, right? And yeah. The solution, does that have a different name?
The solution is also probe right now.
Right. Cool.
Unfortunately, we were trying to look at names like Trial Search, Trial Finder, and all of these things, but they're just bought by people wanting to make money on domains, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, but it certainly sounds fascinating. And whereabouts are you in your journey then, Johan? I think you mentioned you founded the company about 6 months ago. So
yes,
fairly early days, but I bet you've had a lot of progress in that 6 months.
Yes, everything is going, faster than I've ever imagined. We have 2 functioning prototypes, visual prototypes that we've developed, and we're testing that with different patients, asking them about the UI UX part, and do they like the interface? Is there too much text? Is there too little text? Do they feel comfortable? And by the end of Q2 2023, we will release a minimal viable product that can do recruitment tasks. So that's how far we are. And I have a co-founder. I actually have 2 co-founders. One, the physician that I mentioned earlier, and an AI and mathematics guy that knows all the stuff about the infrastructure and the matching algorithm. And I'm basically just the octopus, knowing a little bit about everything.
Yeah, talk to us a bit more about that dynamic then. 3 founders. You're doing full-time doing full-time medical studies as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Let us into a little bit of how you handle all of that and what your typical day looks like.
So yes, there isn't much time to do non-education or probe like stuff. I get up usually at 6 or 7 a.m. and then I don't really attend to the lectures at the university anymore. I just read the stuff that they're talking about. And I just, already at the beginning of my course, I just start making all exam sets to kind of be equipped for the exam. And then whenever I've made some, an hour or 2 of studying, then I just work on probe, basically. And I passed the first of my exams yesterday, so that was a great
congratulations,
great start. Thank you. But I will say that I cannot recommend this style of living for everyone. It takes a bit of you have to have some kind of responsibility to actually read the stuff that you have to. And if there's something that I really don't understand, then I show up to the lectures occasionally.
And Johan, in the creating this company in you can say the Danish life science environment, have you experienced any support from the university or the infrastructure that already exists?
Both yes and no. I've said that I've experienced a tremendous amount of support and also some resistance. The pharma companies are backing us up, which is really nice. And what I like about this solution is that there's not one pharma company that can make the solution, because then their competitors won't use it. So that's the way that we kind of keep them in a short rope. But the university has backed me up a lot. Shout out to Lighthouse from University of Copenhagen and Sundhub and Science Hub. They've been amazing at on telling me how all this business networking stuff works. It's a new world for me, making revenue models, making pitches, all of this. I'm used to being a boring research guy, having data for everything. So this is new, but I like it. And we've been to some DTU has helped us a lot as well on this XTech Plus course. And we've been to both Digital Tech Summit in the Bell Center, and we've been to DTU Startup Day, and having these 2 stands just made us talk to very interesting people. And we have some interested investors on board in our meetings, thanks to this networking. So yeah, that's really amazing getting out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Being on this podcast, of course, I'm very grateful for that.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and I feel like we could dive into so many more avenues, but we do need to start rounding off. And we
Yes.
always end with the same question to our guests, and that is, if you had a magic wand and could wave it and change one thing in our industry, what would that be?
Yes. That's a good question. Okay, so I'd say if it has to be a really crazy wand, this wand, but making a global a global collaboration on clinical trials. And, I'd say the healthcare sector, but it also makes sense that the healthcare sector is not, that centralized, but making a global collaboration on recruiting participants as fast as possible, despite of which country they come from, making it easy and standardized the way that people attend to clinical trials, making the link that the healthcare system is really missing everywhere in the world.
That's an amazing wish. I think that would really transform how we operate, but also the speed of recruitment for the pharmaceutical companies also.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Johan, this has been truly fascinating, and I think our listeners will feel the same way. If people want to reach out to you and ask more questions or connect, where can they find you?
Well, I'd love to have people send me an email. They can write to me at johan@probe.dk, and they can find my LinkedIn page. My name is Johan Lauritsen. So it's like my first name is Johan, and the latter is Lauritsen. And they can give us a call at +45 41 13 66 66. I love to talk.
Amazing.
It's amazing. Hopefully you don't get too many cold callers off the back of that.
This is a work phone. So I can regulate that.
Well, this has been an absolute delight. Johan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to Transformation in Trials. If you have a suggestion for a guest for our show, reach out to Sam Parnell or Ivana Rosendal on LinkedIn. You can find more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or in any other player. Remember to subscribe and get the episodes hot off the editor.